Good evening, all. It's Lori Aristano James here, President of the Board of Education for Monticello Central School District. I'd like to welcome you tonight to our special meeting with regard to our revote budget. I just want to remind people that we are being recorded. There is no way to technically communicate with us via this platform. However, we have published and we will continue to let you know that you can for information and further detail with regard to the budget hearing, you are welcome to send an email to our clerk, who is Jay Montes. So it's JMONTES at k12mcsd.net. And specific to the budget hearing, it's budget at k12mcsd.net. So you can reach us that way. I'd like to just, for attendance purposes, Mrs. Sheriff is unable to join us this evening, but we do have via phone attached to me on this end, Mrs. Doherty, and we do have Ms. Greco is, as you can see, walking to her car. We have Ms. Galligan in her car. We've got Mr. Groden silently in his car, et cetera. So we are all here so that we can make sure that this meeting takes place as per the governor's orders and legal responsibility. So with that said, I'm calling the meeting to order. I'd like to ask everybody to please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you very much. I'd like to remind everybody to please silence their electronic devices, and those of you on the Zoom call to please mute yourselves. Moving the agenda to the table, I'll entertain a motion to move the agenda to the table made by Mr. Cromley, seconded by Ms. Galligan. Any discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? So ordered. Addition, deletions, and corrections to the agenda. Dr. Evans?
There are none at this time, Madam President.
Thank you very much. I'll entertain a motion for the adoption of the agenda as presented, made by Ms. Jersey, seconded by Ms. Holmes. Any discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? So ordered. Moving on to a motion to recess for our public portion of the budget hearing, made by Mr. Crumley, seconded by Ms. Holmes. Any discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? So ordered. Am I turning this over to you, Dr. Evans, or to you, Ms. Fela? Who's taking it?
I'll take it from here, and then I'll turn it over to Ms. Fela.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Oristano James, and good evening, everyone. As most of you know, on Friday evening, July 3rd, Governor Cuomo issued an executive order that allowed districts with failed budget votes in June to do a revote on July 28th. This Board of Education approved and authorized a revote last week. It adopted a proposed budget last week as well. And to go over those details, I'm going to turn this over to Ms. Fela. Ms. Fela.
Thank you. Can you hear me? Okay. So, Janet, can you share the presentation?
Yeah, I'm trying to. Just give me a minute.
Okay. Okay, can everybody see that? Okay, so I'll start. So welcome to the Monticello Central School District 2020-2021 school budget hearing. The budget revote is scheduled for July 28th, 2020 from 12 to 8 p.m. with both in-person and absentee ballots. More information on polling sites and absentee ballots is available on our website and at the end of this presentation. Why a budget revote? New York State education law and the governor's executive order of July 3rd, 2020 allows school districts whose budgets were defeated on the statewide budget vote day the option to revote either on the same budget proposal or a revised budget proposal. Normally, the statewide budget vote day is the third Tuesday in May. But the COVID-19 pandemic postponed the statewide school budget vote to June 9th and then again to June 16th. The governor's order postponing the budget vote stated that information on a revote would be forthcoming, but the revote wouldn't happen prior to July. And on July 3rd, the governor issued that executive order setting the revote date as July 28th. So if we didn't hold a revote, the board would have to adopt a contingency budget for the remainder of the 2020-2021 school year. And I'll explain about contingent budgets later in the presentation. So New York State requires that the school budget be broken out into three components: the administrative, capital, and program portions. The program portion has increased to 76% of the total budget, while the administrative portion has remained flat at 12%, and the capital portion has gone down to 12% from 13% of the total. This budget does maintain all of our programs, current programs for our students. You can go to the next slide. So this slide shows the three components of the budget in comparison to previous years. So as you can see, the program portion of the budget has increased while the capital has gone down and administration remains the same. The majority of our annual budget is dedicated to programs for our students. Next slide. So we said before that you can bring up the same budget or a changed budget. So we made a couple of additional reductions, and this budget is almost $700,000 less than the approved expenditure budget for the 2019-2020 school year. The district spent time reviewing all expenditures and proposed cuts to the budget in order to keep our expenses as low as possible. And this budget reduces expenditures while maintaining all of the programs for our students. And it's a 0.75% reduction from the previous year budget. Next slide. This slide shows the budget broken down by major category of expense. Contractual obligations such as salaries and employee benefits, mandated programs for our students, and debt service payments comprise 88% of the total expenditure budget. That's the portion that we have literally no real control over. So the district did make reductions to the program support, materials, and supplies portion of the budget to reduce this overall proposal and the tax levy. Next slide. So this is some historical budget information for the 18-19, 19-20, and 2021 budget years. The last column is the percent increase or decrease from the prior year budget. And the 2020-2021 budget proposal is a reduction in expenditures of over 0.75%, or about $700,000 from 19-20. So where does the money come from? The two largest revenue sources is the tax levy and state aid. Our state aid for 2021 went down by $929,000. There's an increase in pilots or payments in lieu of taxes that helped to offset that reduction. And then our refund of our BOCES increased, so that helped us offset the reduction as well. Our tax levy, while an increase, is still 0.75% less than the 2% tax levy cap limit and still lower than the taxes that we levied in 2014-15. Next slide. This slide shows the percentage, by percentage, the amount of revenue from each source. The local share, which is in dark orange, has been reduced over the years, while at the same time, we were increasing our state aid percentage in yellow. This shows that the taxpayers have been supporting a smaller portion of the expenditure budget over that time period. It's always my goal to maximize state aid, and the increase in state aid has been shown here, where we went from 36% up to a high of 44%. The reduction in the 2020-21 state aid is directly related to a reduction in building aid due to debt service being paid off. So we still are receiving more state aid than we did in 13-14 and 14-15. And while state aid is a larger percent of the budget, it's still nowhere where it should be. The foundation formula has never been fully funded. Next slide. This slide shows the historical tax levy limit and the 2% tax levy limit calculation. So for the last 4 years, the tax levy increase has been less than the CPI or Consumer Price Index used in the tax levy limit calculation. The difference column represents the dollar amount of the levy that has been below the tax levy limit in each year. And we're still levying less than we did in 14-15. So what would be the impact on a tax bill? The district we don't have final assessed value figures or equalization rates, and we don't get those until mid-August. But if we assume no changes to assessment and equalization rates, and the increase for this budget on the property tax levy for a property assessed at $100,000 would be about $20. That's assessment, not value. So what happens if the budget is defeated? If school budget is defeated twice, the district must immediately adopt a contingent budget. A contingent budget eliminates all equipment purchases. And in this budget, that would include technology purchases, computers for students, driver education vehicles, school buses, buildings and grounds equipment, and vehicles. We won't be able to purchase student supplies. And in addition, community use of school facilities is not allowed. So finally, the date of our budget vote, again, a revised annual budget vote is July 28th from 12 p.m. to 8 p.m. In-person ballots and absentee ballots are allowed. There are only 3 polling sites this year: the gymnasiums at the RJK Middle School, Chase Elementary School, and the Duggan Elementary School. The 2 firehouse locations that we normally use are not open to the public at this time. So I will take any questions that anyone may have.
So first I have to ask Janet, do we have any questions that came in from the community?
I'm gonna look at my email right now.
Thank you.
No,
I'm sorry, say that again?
I have none right now.
Okay, so we have no questions from the community. Again, if you are watching this and you do have a question with regard to that, please send to budget@k12mcsd.net, and we will get back to you within 3 business days, and we will absolutely post it onto our district website so that everybody can see your question, and the answer will be there made public as well. I do want to just quickly, because terminology is sometimes used that some folks may not understand. Foundation aid is the aid that we were supposed to be getting from New York State, and foundation aid has not been made whole in this state since they came up with the formula. You know, we hear a lot of people say to us on a regular basis that that funding should not be done through property taxes. Many of us sitting around this table right now would agree with you. However, the bottom line is It's the system we have. It is what we have to do until it is changed at the state level. There is nothing this school board can do. We continue to advocate through NISBA with regard to this. It's not coming forward. When and if it does, it will benefit a number of people for equity in school district funding across the state. But that is not the system that is in place currently, and there is nothing this school board or this administration can do about that. The situation with the revote was totally determined by the governor. There is nothing that this board or this administration can do about it. Our only decision was whether or not we were going to come forward with a revote. Understanding what the situation was in the limited amount of money between the contingency budget and what we have been able to come down to in this particular, the secondary reduction from the first that this board had already approved. I want to thank Mrs. Fela on behalf of this board. You, along with all the administrators, along with the teachers, along with the support staff, you guys all worked together along with both Dr. Silver and now Dr. Evans, with regard to ensuring that we could come down below a 0% budget from last year. And now you even trimmed and sharpened your pencil more. We said that in the meeting last time. This is a budget hearing. I want people to hear that again. We have come down. In the expenditures that you showed on your slide, we only control an extremely small portion of any budget that comes before us. Everything else is mandated and we have to comply. And that's what winds up taking place. I think sometimes in seeing the presentation and the slides, that sometimes just putting it in layman's terms helps people to understand what it is that we as a board look at, what we are hearing very clearly for the past number of years that we needed to address, this board has done. And whether or not this community chooses to support this revote will be totally up to them and the consequences that fall from that with regard to higher expenditures down the road. Because if you don't meet this formula that this foundation aid and everything comes into, and it is a formula, it affects long-term of budgets to come. Bottom line, we have to educate our students. We are going to do it based upon what it is that this community chooses to support or not. We are one of 11 school districts in this state that did not pass its budget. With a fiduciary responsible budget, a fiscally stable budget that gives us long-term planning, which is what this community has asked for. This board, this administration, the faculty, staff, everybody involved has delivered. Now it's up to you. So with that said, I'd like to entertain a motion to reconvene our regular meeting. So made by Ms. Jersey, seconded by Ms. Holmes. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? So ordered. So moving on from there, it is now time for Board of Education members. Any questions of Mrs. Sala? Not seeing any around the table. And Mrs. Doherty, considering you're the one who continuously says to me, people need to understand the portion of the budget we controlled, I spoke on your behalf.
Madam President.
So hold on one moment, please, Mr. Groden. Mr. Crumley has the question first, and then Mr. Groden.
On the flyer, there was a little bit of an error with the email to get an absentee ballot. Has that been corrected?
So not only has it been corrected, but whichever email you send the information to, the school district will receive it. We do own the domain of the .org, I think it was, or yeah, it was the .org.
Yeah, the mistake was to mail email absentee ballot applications to Janet Montez, jmontez@k12mcsd.org. Mr. Wagner and his crew moved quickly to buy that domain, so we now own that domain. And we've also been able to route any emails that go to that email address to Janet's, Ms. Montez's email address. That's typically jmontez@k12mcsd.net. So that we will receive them there as well.
And just so people understand, to buy a domain is under $20 generally. So whereas a new mailing to correct that problem would have been well over several $1,000s. So it was a fiduciarily responsible way to handle this. So we thank you, Mr. Wagner, and your team for making that happen. Mr. Groden.
I simply wanted to say thank you to Mr. Wagner and Ms. Montez and Ms. Falia for pulling together when it was that we had received this notice of being only one of 11 to not pass our budget at a 732 in the state. So thank you for everybody and being fiscally responsible.
So as I said earlier, it's now up to this community whether or not they're going to support the education of the students in this community and move on from there. With that said, Mr. Crumley, do you have anything you'd like to say?
I move that we take action items 3.01 and 3.02 as a group.
Do I have a second on
I
that?
second it. I
Mr.
second it.
Groden, thank you. All in favor? Please let the record show that Mrs. Doherty is saying yes to that as well. Any opposed? So ordered. Moving on from there, Mr. Crumley.
I move that we approve action items 3.01 and 3.02.
Seconded by?
Mr.
Ms.
Groden.
Jersey, any discussion? All in favor? Let the record, Kathleen's there saying aye as well, so thank you.
Aye.
Ms. Doherty, and also Mr. Groden, thank you. Any further, no, there's nothing else on the agenda. Look at that, we're at the end of the agenda. So I'll entertain a motion. Again, I just want to remind people tonight, Mr. Evans is starting his tour of schools in the district. Every night in the next 2 weeks, he is visiting different schools. We're doing it via Zoom. Please go on, meet Dr. Evans, get to know what he's about, where his philosophy is. This board has had the opportunity, along with several members who are from the community and from our faculty and students, as part of the selection committee. It's now your opportunity to say hello and meet and greet via Zoom. Is not the way we'd like to do this, but it's a way to at least get Dr. Evans introduced. So please check the website for further information regarding which school building. You're certainly welcome to sign into any of them, but he'll be building specific and principals on for the building specific if you can attend any of the other ones. Board members, just a reminder, if you're a liaison to one of the buildings, please check your schedule so that you can sign on. Lastly, a reminder, July 28th is our vote. It's up to you guys. We can't talk Monty Pride. We can't continue to do the work that we've been doing without ensuring that we have funding. It's that simple. I was pleased when I was on school board association meetings at the state level where Monticello, through this whole COVID crisis, was commended on a regular basis for the manner in which we responded to our community through this crisis. We were a shining example on how to take care of students, how to take care of our community. Up to you how you want to do that now. We ask for your support. Just let us know. Thank you very much to everybody, and I'll entertain a motion to adjourn made by, look, nobody wants to adjourn, Ms. Holmes, and seconded by Ms. Jersey. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? So ordered. Thank you, everybody. Have a good night.
Night.
Have a good night, everyone.
Good night.
Good night.
Stay well.
Aye.